So hear me out. This is the Samsung Fold7, and this is the future of smartphone cameras, but not exactly for the reason you think. Let's talk about it. And big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. We'll talk about them a little bit later on. So if you are new here, welcome to another episode of Photographer versus Smartphone. In this series, I like to take my 10 years of photography experience and apply it to the latest and greatest smartphone and figure out how good are these cameras and give a perspective that's a little bit different from typical tech reviews. Tech reviewers, they talk about everything. I like to get a little bit more nerdy about the cameras, about the photography abilities, and a more practical outlook on how good these cameras actually are for anyone out there who's trying to make the best pictures they can. And another good thing about me not being a tech reviewer, well, good for you, not so great for me, is the fact that I spent $2,000 on this smartphone because I don't have any contacts with Samsung, so you're getting my unbiased, unpaid for, unglazed opinions on this smartphone camera. So do me a favor, if you enjoy videos like this, please hit the thumbs up button and leave a comment. It helps out the channel quite a bit. So with that intro out of the way, let's talk about what I dislike about the photography capabilities on the Samsung Fold7. Essentially, what I dislike about the camera here is the fact that this is what you would expect from just a modern smartphone camera. It's not what you would expect from something that you're spending $2,000 on. I feel like Samsung held back a little bit here on the photography capabilities of this Fold7. When you step up to higher quality settings like RAW mode and expert RAW with these Samsung files, so you can edit the files more and do more with them, you only have access to 50 megapixels with the wide camera. Everything else is 12 megapixels for RAW, which for some people isn't necessarily a big deal, but in my opinion, if you're spending $2,000 on a smartphone, you should be able to use some of the more modern tech that we're seeing in the Samsung S25 Ultra. The S25 Ultra has the ability to do RAW files at 50 megapixels across all three cameras, so it's kind of weird to not have that capabilities with this smartphone. Now, I understand why Samsung would do this. They don't want to cannibalize their whole phone lineup, but for me, it just seemed kind of weird. You have this really top-of-the-line device that everyone is praising, but the photography abilities are throttled a little bit. There's really no other way I can say it other than this is exactly what you would expect from any other Samsung phone in the last 2 years. Like, the image quality is exactly the same. It's not pushing anything farther, and the files have the same issues that you're used to with Samsung files. Sometimes the computational photography inside of smartphones from Samsung feel a little bit off and weird. Sometimes images feel a little bit too smoothed out. Sometimes if you're using RAW files, the images are very noisy and overexposed. Once you get used to these things, it's pretty easy to work around them, but it's the exact same problems that most people have seen from all previous Samsung phones. This is just exactly what you would expect, and unfortunately there's nothing more for me to report. I wish I could say this is some new great leap forward, but it's not. Once I realized this wasn't anything new, I kept the phone in JPEG mode. The photos looked good, they're crispy, I like the quality of them, and I was able to throw a little bit of an edit on these images pretty easily, and everything worked nicely. There's not a lot to report when it comes to the actual camera capabilities on this. But there is something major to report, and it's the reason why I mentioned this being the future of smartphone cameras. We'll talk about that in a second once we thank today's sponsor, Squarespace. So right now, thanks to smartphones and the internet, we are living in the era of the side hustle. More and more people are figuring out ways to turn their passions into money-making opportunities. And if you're looking to monetize your passion, the easiest way to do that is with a website built on Squarespace. Squarespace is known for their award-winning templates that turn web design into something so simple anyone can do it. Tools like Fluid Engine allow you to literally drag and drop things around on your page so you can customize your site. But this ease of use applies to all the other tools Squarespace provides. If you're someone who wants to get into email marketing, Squarespace has email templates that are just as easy to use as their website templates, and they allow you to make automations with ease so you can design the entire backend for your site. If you're someone who wants to sell a course, building courses on Squarespace is easy with all of their course templates, or maybe you're someone who wants wants to get into e-commerce, Squarespace allows you to easily add things to your website and, more importantly, accept and organize payments with things like Squarespace Payments. If you're someone who's been thinking about starting that side hustle, now is the time to do it with the help of Squarespace, and Squarespace is hooking up the channel with a special offer. You can go to squarespace.com/EvanRamp to start a free trial and use code EvanRamp to save 10% at checkout. That's squarespace.com/EvanRamp to start a free trial, and when you're ready to sign up, you can use code EvanRamp to save 10% at checkout. Big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. So I truly mean this. This phone marks a new era for smartphone photography and just smartphone creativity in general, and it comes down to one key feature on this Fold 7. Now, before I talk about that, I do want to mention two things about this design that I don't like before I start praising it. One is how far the camera actually sticks out from the phone. It's a little bit obnoxious, and if you're someone who wants to protect the camera on here, you're definitely going to need some type of case. I've been really paranoid the whole time I've been using this about setting it down on certain things. Samsung likes to say that you can use the phone as a tripod. Personally, I don't love that because it means you're going to be setting the screen down on something, but it's there if you really want to use it and you don't care about the screen. And one last thing that's been a little bit of an issue, I have really big hands, so opening the phone is a little bit tricky at times, but I think I would prefer a phone that has a little bit more detent to it, that's harder to open versus something that's just like popping open with ease. But other than those small issues, this is one of the best designed phones that I've used possibly ever. You see, the size of this phone is literally perfect. When you take this out of your pocket and you just use it like a normal phone, I love the size of the screen. I think it works great for photography. I think it works great just as a basic phone. And when you fold the phone open, you now have something that is so unbelievably thin. I can't even explain to you how thin this phone is. It's like holding a piece of cardboard or something. And when you're making photos with it, it's really nice to have this large display. But for the first time ever, you're getting this large display in a phone with absolutely no compromises. When I compared this to the Oppo phone that I used a few years back, that phone was very thick compared to this Fold 7. The Fold 7, it might not show up on camera, is unbelievably thin, creating a user experience unlike anything I've ever experienced before. The fact that you have a phone that's so convenient to use like a normal phone that turns into a tablet in any situation is a game changer, and it is the future. Because when it comes to using something like Lightroom Mobile, that program has always been sort of something you just use when you have to as a more serious photographer, because it doesn't work the greatest on a traditional smartphone screen. The screen is just too small for intense edits. You can't really see what you're doing, so Lightroom Mobile is more of a tool just when you need it for quick edits. This phone allows you to turn Lightroom Mobile into something that you can use for very serious editing. I loved editing photos on this because it actually felt like a tablet and a real screen versus just editing on a phone and winging it. I wouldn't be surprised if there's people out there who start editing more serious videos on this device because they have the ability to do so. More and more of creativity is moving towards small devices, and this gives you the best of both worlds. It's a mix of a phone and a tablet with no compromises and no friction. And as cameras continue to get better and better, an interface like this feels like the future of the current creative world that we're in. Also, I almost forgot to mention, in the marketing material for the Fold 7, Samsung mentioned how they improved the shutter speed for this camera. Now, shutter speed in my mind, being a photographer, means literally like how high the shutter can get on the camera, but what I think they meant is how fast the camera actually works. On previous Samsung cameras, I complained about a little bit of a lag in the shutter, and it sort of ruined some of my photos because the timing was off. With this phone, I felt like the images were captured and processed much faster, and when you actually hit the shutter button, the image you got reflected when you hit the button, versus previous Samsung phones where there was a lag and you ended up missing certain shots. So I did really like that, but all in all, this feels like an interesting time time for mobile photography and mobile creativity in general. I'm interested to see what the future holds from companies like Google as well as Apple. If you're someone out there who only cares about photography, you're looking for the best smartphone camera possible, I actually still recommend the Samsung S24 Ultra. The S25 had some issues that I didn't love, and personally, this feels still like a downgrade from the S24 when it comes to picture making ability, but the S24 does not have all the flexibility and functionality of this phone. If you're someone out there who wants a good camera, but you want all the functionality of a phone that folds, that also translates from creativity to gaming to media to social media to just how you use the phone online, this is kind of a no-brainer, and I really don't think you're going to regret it unless you're that person who is super serious about photography. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like I said, if you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, leave a thumbs up. I'm gonna get out of here. Catch y'all next time.